when does selling become overselling? I don't know if you could really answer that or quantify that, but you know what I mean.
Well, I'll give you something deep here. And the only way, I don't know if you can do it anymore, but the way you can tell is you can go back and you can watch old tapes on YouTube. Especially overselling used to be the province of the heels. The standard thing was the baby face should sell most realistically. And look in anguish and pain that people can feel that's real. And the body language should be expressing with a stretch in the back or whatever. And Ricky Morton, classic, running around on his hands and knees with sweat in his face, looking like he's crying from the pain where they've ripped his fucking skin off his flesh or whatever. Whereas a heel should oversell somewhat, because that's what they want to see him get his. And in the early part of the match, it gets the people into the match and shines the babyface that they say if the heel takes some big bumps for the babyface and shows that his offense is fucking, effective, and the heel can't really find a way to fucking out wrestle this guy. So then he has to cheat. And then when he gets the heat on the babyface and babyface sells realistically like he's in agony or whatever, and this is in a perfect world and a perfect match. And then finally, when the babyface blows his big comeback, once again, that's for the heel to take the really big bumps. That's whenever Ray Stevens would get shot across the ring and fly upside down into the turnbuckles. Or, when Lawler would drop the strap in the middle of the ring in the Mid-South Coliseum, whatever heel would take a bump on all the big punches, boom, bump and feed. And that can be a level of overselling, because it's what the people have waited for. But the point I was going to make is you will notice if the people are just down on their ass and the baby face just grabs and nothing's really happening in the match, and suddenly the baby face just grabs the heel and punches him, and the heel takes a big fucking backflip and lands, they'll kind of go, eh. But if it's during the comeback, when they're invested in the right place, at the right time in the match, when they really finally want to see this guy get the fucking shit kicked out of him, and that same fucking punch happens and the same bump happens, the people go, wow! The sell in some cases, and especially the old-time heels, were good at this. It depends. When you hear the people, you know how much to sell it. And you can get away with overselling when the people want to see it and are cheering for it. You actually sell more. But if the people ain't into it, then that's when it looks hokey. Then you're just doing it on your own. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
But a lot of guys don't recognize that, and they take the same bump for the same move, regardless of what part of the match it's in or whether the people are into what's happening or not.
Do you think Flair has ever been guilty of that?
Yeah, kind of. But then the thing is, people were usually always into everything Flair was doing. I mean, except toward the end, I think he started playing with himself a little bit. I don't mean that in that way, but he was getting he's getting a little too cute. But most of the time when Flair would do those things, they were ready to see Flair just take bump, 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 bump. They wanted to see all that shit.
Like, I just watched WrestleMania 3 for the first time in a while. Like, in my new office, I said, I want this to be the first show I watch in here. And the opening match was Morocco and Orton versus the Can-Am. And Morocco does the Ray Stevens bump. You send him to the turnbuckle, yes. He flips over. A few matches later, it's Adonis versus Piper. Adonis does it. So, I mean, when you see that, is it like that's one of those things that should be confined to one guy on a show?
Well, yeah, and see, the problem is there you had two guys that could do that bump flawlessly that at that point had physiques that looked like they shouldn't have had any fucking idea of trying that bump, right? But they could do it. But yeah, I don't know whether, and that's why, once again, when I got into business, and the rule in all the territories was that you should sit down and watch the matches. Even if you were on top, you watch the earlier matches so you don't fucking rerun shit and see what people have done. I think they probably, knowing, because I know that Don Morocco takes that bump, and I know that Adrian Adonis does. So if they were together, I should have thought they would have probably should have got together and flipped a coin over it. But yes, there were no agents micromanaging the matches back then. the booker or assistant booker, one of two people came to you and said, okay, Don, you're going over 15 minutes, whatever. And then the guys went out and had their match. So that's where you used to see shit like that a lot. If guys didn't watch the fucking matches, they would rerun shit that really should only happen every great once in a while.
The Hogan match happened long after you had left WWE, but Shawn Michaels, that's one of those things people point to. Look at the overselling in that match, which was really embarrassing in so many ways.
Yeah.
But did you ever experience anything like that with Shawn Michaels, who we know he was gifted, he was so athletic, but could be guilty of having a tantrum and just overselling to a ridiculous degree? Anything that you witnessed firsthand?
No, that was the first time he had done that one. Because usually if he got mad, he'd take back over or whatever. I mean, that's probably I'm sure that Hulk Hogan had made some comment to him or about him that he'd heard about or whatever, that he decided that was the appropriate response to. But once again, it's like Hennig. He's so good. There were still people that I'm sure there were people that didn't get, even though it was pretty obvious. I'm sure there were people that didn't get what was going on and thought, wow, Hulk Hogan's kicking the shit out of him. He's so good, he can do that. As I talked about when Barry Windham and Bobby Eaton used to have the match on their knees just to amuse themselves, make it a little harder on the spot shows. Guys that are so good can do shit like that, but sometimes it's just to have fun and nobody's none the wiser, and sometimes it's to make somebody look like a flaming fucking idiot.
Well, in that case, what I think it was, and I don't remember for sure, but I think that was actually a pay-per-view that did a big buy rate. It was like a SummerSlam that did over 500,000 pay-per-view buys. I think. I could be wrong, but what happened was the program Shawn Michaels wanted to work was, I'll win the first match, you win the second match, and then you win the blow-off. And then Hogan's like, all right, I like it, but here's the way I would do it. How about I win the first match and the second match and the third match? So that's Shawn Michaels' reaction to the idea that, yeah, Hogan will work with him, but Hogan's not going to lay down for him, which is kind of funny considering it's Shawn Michaels who would have done that.
Well, I was about to say, it's so poetic. I really like that. I like the shoe. The shoe, as they say, was just slid on the other foot.